Ready for a really cool deep dive today? We're heading over to Batumi, Georgia.
Batumi's on the Black Sea, right?
You got it, and it's known for its amazing views. But we're going deeper than that. We're looking at how different cultures have thrived together there. I mean, for centuries this has been going on. And knowing you love this kind of stuff, how food and hospitality play a role, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Always fascinated by that.
So, get this. We're diving into how Batumi became this incredible melting pot, how food brings everyone together there, and how it's become, well, a modern tourist spot, but still holding on to its roots. It's really a story of balance.
You know, it's funny you say that because this isn't something new for Batumi. It's always been this mix of cultures. Even back in the
Oh,
1400s.
you're talking about that German traveler, what was his name, Johann Schildberger?
Yes, Schildberger. He wrote about Batumi being home to Greeks, Armenians, Persians, and others.
It's wild, like a snapshot in time.
Yeah, totally. And we can't forget about where Batumi is, right? On the Black Sea, it was this super important port city, a crossroads for trade, so it drew people in, people from the Byzantine Empire and even further. That kind of exchange really impacts culture.
It's like it was destined to be this melting pot, even back then, and trade played such a huge role.
100%. You can still see the Byzantine influence everywhere, the buildings, their religion, even their language.
So we've got this mix of cultures in their history, their architecture.
Yeah.
But what about daily life? How did this mix show up in how they ate, their hospitality?
Now we're talking one word, Ajurian khachapuri.
Okay, you're going to have to explain that one.
Picture this, boat-shaped bread filled with like the gooeyest cheese you can imagine, then a runny egg on top, and just really get you going, a big old slab of butter melting over everything. It's incredible.
You're making me hungry.
Yeah.
But what's the story behind it?
So it's actually from the Ajara region, which is like its own special thing within Georgia. This dish, it represents Ajara, and eventually it made its way to Batumi. And now it's like a must-try, not just for tourists, even locals love it. It's a real example of all these different regional traditions coming together.
I love that. It's like this window into their history. So we've got Byzantine influences, this Ajarian Khachapuri. It just seems like Batumi has always been this place where cultures come together.
Exactly. And it's not just about blending, but the hospitality is huge. Have you heard of the Batumi fish market?
I don't think so. Tell me more.
Okay, so imagine this. You're at this bustling market right by the water. Fishermen are bringing in what they caught that day, fresh off the boats. And anyone, locals, tourists, can just buy the fish and have it grilled right there.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. What a cool way to experience the culture. Just dive right in.
Right. The atmosphere, the smells, you really get a feel for Batumi.
Okay, so Batumi has been multicultural for a really long time. That's clear. But things change, especially with everything that happened in the 20th century. How did Batumi handle the Soviet era and then becoming this modern tourist spot?
You're hitting on a big point. Batumi has seen a lot of change, that's for sure. During, the Soviet times, it was basically a fishing town, a little rough around the edges, not the tourist destination it is now.
But then the Soviet Union collapsed and things started changing really quickly.
Oh, yeah. It was dramatic. Suddenly you have modern buildings popping up next to these historic places, this big push for tourism. And of course, it got that nickname, the Las Vegas of the Black Sea. Catchy, right? Maybe a little too simple, though. But it does show how much Batumi has changed.
I mean, it's quite a jump. From a quiet fishing town to, well, a gambling and tourist hotspot. Did that change its multicultural feel?
That's the question, isn't it? And the answer is, well, it's complicated. It's done a great job holding on to its heritage. You can feel that mix of cultures when you walk through the old town. All the different architectural styles, all the different people.
Right, like a living museum almost.
Exactly. But there's no denying that more tourism, more money coming in, it has brought challenges.
What kind of challenges? Is it hard to keep traditions alive with globalization? Or is it more clash between the old ways and the new ways?
You got it. Batumi's walking a tightrope. Think about that fish market we talked about. How do you keep that authentic, with the local fishermen and how they cook, when you have all these tourists who want that perfect Instagram picture?
It's tough, right? You want to share your culture, but you also want to protect it.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just tourism. Look at the city itself, how people get along. Batumi has always been a place where different religions are accepted. You'll see mosques, synagogues, Orthodox churches, even a Catholic cathedral, all pretty close to each other. And everyone gets along.
That's amazing, especially these days.
It's special, and this isn't new. It goes way back in Batumi's history. There are stories from the 1800s that show this. Like there's this one about a Georgian Muslim family, and their kid, He recited this patriotic poem, right? But it was at a play that a Georgian Christian organized. It just shows how strong their sense of community was, even back then.
It's a really powerful story. It shows a level of acceptance that's really inspiring. But with everything changing in Batumi, is that spirit still there? I mean, the tolerance, the inclusivity.
Oh, it's there. The Batumians are really proud of their multicultural city. They get that their diversity is what makes them strong.
So they're facing these challenges head on.
They're working on it. They're making a real effort to preserve what makes them special, from their food to their music to their festivals.
Yeah.
And most importantly, they're passing it down to the next generation.
That's what it's all about. It sounds like Batumi is figuring out how to be modern but not lose who they are. There's one more thing I'm curious about, though. We've talked a lot about the culture, but what about the money side of things? Yeah. Tourism and gambling have brought in a lot of investment, right? But how has that impacted Batumi being multicultural? Has it brought new communities into the mix?
Now, that's a really interesting question. It gets right to the heart of Batumi's story. It's like a strong economy. It draws people in, right? People looking for something better. And that's definitely Batumi. The tourism boom, especially, it's attracted people from all over Georgia, even other countries. And they all bring something new to the table.
So it's adding even more to what was already there.
Exactly. And they're not just coming for work, they're staying. Opening businesses, bringing their own traditions and flavors. Look at the restaurants. You'll find traditional Georgian food, yeah, but also Turkish, even Italian.
Now I'm really hungry. It's not just the food, though. All these new people, it must be impacting the culture in other ways.
For sure. There are art galleries popping up. The music scene is changing. Even the fashion has this more global feel. It's wild, this blend of old and new.
Wow.
Local and global.
Batumi's like a little snapshot of how the world is changing. But it feels natural, like a good thing.
Exactly. It's adapting, taking in new things, but not losing itself. It's what makes Batumi so interesting.
We've talked about so much. From like way back in Batumi's history to what it is now. And I feel like we could talk for hours more. There's just so much to learn.
Oh, absolutely. Batumi's a city you got to experience, to talk to the people, try the food, see the history.
So to our listeners, here's something to think about. Batumi's changing, right? New people, new ideas, always coming in. What's next for this mix of cultures? It's a question worth asking yourself. Maybe even worth a trip to Batumi to see for yourself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a pleasure.